everyone. My name is Alison Woodall, and I have an online guide called Make the Move that takes you step by step through the process of moving to a new state. And today I am talking to Steve Haren, and he is a realtor in the Villages area in Central Florida. Steve, welcome.
Hey, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really honored to be here, and I'm looking forward to talking to you about the villages in all of Central Florida.
Well, I can't wait to talk about that. I love Florida. I used to live in Tampa, so Florida is where I'm going to end up. I don't know that much about the villages, so you can definitely educate me. But before we get started talking about that, you've moved to Florida quite recently from Ohio. What's been the biggest change, with your Florida lifestyle versus your Ohio lifestyle?
So the first biggest change is the welcome change, and that is we no longer have to deal with winter snow, right? But the other big thing is just how much you have available to do. There is never a shortage of things that are less than 2 hour drive away. It's absolutely phenomenal. Tampa is one of those, right? It's just an amazing area, but it's an hour and 50 minutes, right? So you can go down and have a great day and come back and see all the stuff that you want to see. So that's been probably the best thing.
You are in the perfect location. You can do beautiful West Coast Gulf beaches, or you can do, the East Coast beaches. You are close to Orlando for all the amusement parks and all the big city life. You are in such a great location that a few love bugs or a hurricane, what you have to offer is more, your area has to offer is more than made up for. Okay, so for someone who has never been to your area, paint a picture, of what it looks like. You step outside the average house. What do you see?
I'm gonna start that with what everybody calls the villages in the villages area, and it's Disney World for adults. Or I should say, because we're talking to Californians, in some of these cases, it's Disneyland for adults. And there's some truth to that, because the planners for this community worked hand in hand with the Disney creators for Disney World. So they got all of the tips and tricks and how do you maintain it? How do you make it look beautiful? So every time we go outside, it's super well manicured. It is gorgeous. The trees are placed perfectly. Everything is exactly where it should be. And you really feel, as you're driving through on your golf cart, you really feel like you're in an amusement park or in that kind of a setting where everything is manicured, everything is wonderful, and beautifully maintained. So they do a beautiful job of the aesthetic here and making sure that everybody is proud to be here and feels like it's exactly that, Disney World or Disneyland for adults. And when I talk about the golf cart thing, I don't think a lot of people really understand it or understand even the village's lifestyle that's here until you see it. So we came down here and stayed for a week, and you walk outside and every day is beautiful. I mean, you get a few, cloudy days here and there, but it's so rare. It's called the Sunshine State for a reason. And the palm trees and the breeze, there's always a breeze. It's never stagnant here. And there's just a feeling to that is like, and I've been all over the country. It's like nowhere else I've ever been. It's called the villages for a reason. It is a cluster of small villages, and each village has its own gated entrance, and each village has its own identity. Even in some of the architecture, the gates when you're going in, they all have their own look. So people, when they're looking at homes here, aren't just looking at the homes, they're looking at what does this community look like? What's the overall aesthetic here? And does it seem like a community that I'm going to be able to live in and enjoy the neighbors and everything's going to be good. And like I said, they all take on their own personalities. They have their own driveway parties. It's just their own. There's a couple that during the holiday season, they go all out and everybody participates in putting lights together so that people go out on their golf carts and go around and take a look at them. So it really is individual to what you feel like you can get into. So yes, it's not this big cookie cutter corporate, right? You get a neighborhood, and then you've got the larger scope. And when you get into the larger scope, one of the things that's unique about the villages is there are four basically town centers. And they have, all four of these have live entertainment 365 days a year, every night. And so you can go to any of the three of them are set up as town squares. So they're really cool. They've got stages. They've got a huge center opening. They've got shops and restaurants that surround it, and the spoke and wheel idea with the streets, and the restaurants are really good. There's some local ones. There's some big national chains. Great mix. They've got a theater in one of them. Actually, they've got theater in two of those, and they have different themes. There's one that's themed for like the Old West. There's one that's themed for Cape style lakefront or waterfront living with a big boardwalk that's right down on a lake. It's beautiful. That seems to be the one that's everybody's favorite. It's also the most centrally located. And then we've got another one that's based on like the Spanish heritage of the area. So it's all Spanish architecture, and they even created little fake, just like Disney does. They did these little fake background stories for the different buildings and the towns, and made up characters and stuff. So you'll see plaques around town that you can actually go and read. So there's a ton of stuff to do. There's just shy of 4,000 groups that you can join. That any kind of hobby that you can think of, there's a group for it, and there's probably 10 groups for it. So if you get bored, if you feel like you can't be part of a community here, it's your own fault. It really is. It's you doing or not doing anything and just sitting in your house. And it's also why I think when I travel around here inside the villages and I'm watching people, I think this place adds 10 years to your life. It takes so much off of your shoulders. It's so easy to work through and enjoy, and you remember that you can go and enjoy these things, and they're always there. So it's pretty spectacular. Just how small town it can still feel, even though geographically it's the size of the size of Manhattan. The aesthetic is amazing. The weather is amazing. I know some people complain about how hot it gets during the summer. And there are days when you walk outside and you hit a wall of heat and humidity that's tough. So what we do is we turn around and go back in the house and wait a few hours until you get into the evening, and then you go out. Back on the golf carts, there are golf carts everywhere. Everything in the villages itself is golf cart accessible 100%. They have an entire street and road infrastructure devoted to the golf carts. And you see golf carts of all kinds. So that's one of the other aesthetics, is every time you step outside, you're going to see golf carts going by. You're going to see custom golf carts. There's a guy here that's got one that looks like a Peterbilt truck. It's absolutely amazing. And again, nobody can really grasp it until you come and take a look at it, come and do, a visit, spend a weekend or a week here and check it out. But it's hard to explain, and it's hard to get that across, and it does kind of sound like I joined a cult when I talk about it.
I totally understand. Although I've never been to the villages, my experience of Florida is Florida does resort living so well. So the reason that I was in a travel trailer for a year and a half is because I loved it so much. I was in like a baby version of what you're experiencing, because we lived in a resort, and it was a 55 plus resort, even though it was me and my husband and my kids. We were the exception to the 55 plus rule. And people would say to me, why are you still living in a 30-foot travel trailer? Because ours wasn't even a mobile home. It was literally, I could hook it up to my truck at any point and drive away. But everybody was on golf carts. The weather is perfect. You get the occasional pop-up storm in the afternoon.
Yeah. Yep.
The humidity in summer can be a little bit brutal, but I would much rather have a few months of humidity and heat in summer for 9 months of perfect weather versus, a mild summer and lake effect snow in winter. Wherever you live, there's going to be a couple of months of the year where you don't like the weather. But resort living in Florida it's the most fabulous thing. So we have to talk about price point and your market, because you've just described this idyllic place. Mm-hmm. But is it affordable for your average person?
And that's one of the best points about being here. A lot of people, when they talk about or think about Florida, they think about all of the coastal stuff and places that you can live. The St. Augustines, the Tampas, the Clearwaters, the Boca Ratons, right? And it seems expensive. Here in Central Florida, including the villages, the average price point here is about $400,000. So it becomes something that's really affordable. That's an average. I'm going to tell you that inside the villages itself, you can buy under 200,000, and you can take that all the way up to several million if you want to. They have that kind of range. And then the communities around it that you can get into if you're not quite ready to move into something like that. They've got communities around, and cities and towns around that have homes in the 100s. So really depends on what you're looking for, what kind of lifestyle. We've got great schools. The Villages is big enough even that they have their own school system. And that sounds weird because it is a 55 and over community that adheres to the 80-20 rule. I don't know if you need me to
Yes, explain that, because I know 55 communities allow some people in, but that was on a very small resort scale. So if you explain for the Villages, that'd be great.
So the Villages approach is they fully take advantage of the 80-20 rule, meaning 80% of the residents need to be 55 or older. And when I say resident, it's a homeowner. You don't even have to be a full-time resident, as long as somebody on the deed is over 55, and that's 80% of the ownership in the Villages itself. And a lot of the communities around it follow the same rule. They're okay. They keep their tax status based on that, right? And that's what it's all about, is they get a certain tax status for maintaining that level. Some communities aren't as liberal as that. They won't follow it at all. But the Villages, you can be 40, you can be in your 30s. If you have children, they have to be 19. So there is a limitation to that. Otherwise, they can only stay for a month. But that being said, and the reason why I was going into the school system is, it seems odd for a 55 and over community that it would have a school system, especially one that graduates, I don't know, 500-600 students a year, and it's a full school system. It's one of the best in the state. It's a charter school, and basically what it is, the Villages is so big, they need people to work all of the different businesses. They need employees, not just at the Villages, but like all the restaurants. There's 2 different Walmarts, there's 2 Target stores, and the number of restaurants is astonishing. Plus the Villages itself is the area's largest employer. So anybody that works on or in a place inside the Villages boundaries and has children can have their kids go to that school. It's one of the incentives you get to working or trying to work at one of the businesses that's inside the boundary. But there are also really good schools in the outlying communities.
I think I read somewhere with the Villages is one of the largest growing areas in the country, or one of the largest growing markets. It's
the fastest right now. People are coming here in droves. They're coming here from every state. There are a few states that tend to be primary feeders, and it's interesting because for the longest time it was New York, Pennsylvania, Ohio. I mean, it was just like that was the cluster that was the biggest draw down here. Florida still provides more residents to the Villages than any other state because people know about it here locally, so they come here. But what's been interesting in the last, I don't know, year and a half has been the influx from California. And the other thing that's fun about it, when we get people coming from California or New York, especially, I get a kick out of going around and showing them all these great houses, and they're going to pay a third of what they would pay for it in the state they came from. And they're kind of blown away by that they get to pocket so much of the money that for those that owned homes in those areas, they get to pocket so much of the money that they sold their house for. And it helps them create retirement funds and all kinds of fun stuff and make life here that much nicer. For those that aren't at that age, there are lots of job opportunities. Ocala is very close to here. It's a pretty major area. And people are moving there in droves. And the businesses that are being attracted to that area right now are just through the roof. So there's opportunities to live between Ocala and the Villages and have a beautiful home and not spend a fortune to get it done. Have your kids go to a great school and be able to enjoy this lifestyle. Well, so you've touched on all the amazing amenities.
You've got all the shops, you've got restaurants, you've got all of those kind of things within the Villages and the surrounding area. Does that and it's all manicured, does that push up your property prices? And do you also, property taxes? And do you also have to pay like HOA fees or something to pay for all of those amazing amenities?
If you're in the villages or one of those gated communities like that are sitting around it, yeah, there's usually some sort of a fee, a monthly fee. Some of them refer to it as an HOA, some of them refer to it, the villages calls it an amenities fee, but it's under $200 a month. It does not include anything. It's not like a condo or type of thing. So it's not like you're getting any maintenance or anything out of it. There are some places, I will say this, there are some places that you're going to pay a little bit more than, like, I think right now the average is $179 is the typical monthly HOA in the villages. There are these villas that you can get into that are either zero maintenance or the villages puts it into their maintenance plan, and you pay a little bit more per month and you get zero maintenance happening on your house. So really, there's so much here, and there are so many different ways to get into it that it's kind of astonishing. If we can't figure out a way to get you into a house here, there's something wrong. But from a taxes standpoint, the villages actually sprawls over 3 counties. It's that big. So you want to pay attention to some degree which county you're going to be in so that you understand what that rate's going to be. There's a homestead capability that you can do here that everybody can qualify for that gets you a nice reduction. If you're over the 55, there's an additional one. There was a proposition, I think, passed, I have to check on this, but that is going to offer first responders and military and that an additional homestead exemption here in the state of Florida, and any veterans or military personnel are going to benefit from that. Where some of the communities get you, and it surprises people, especially when you deal with the community selling the houses themselves, is something called a CDD and a bond. And the bond isn't on every house. The bond is something that is on newer construction and brand new construction. It's a massive fee that they tack on that you need to pay, and it helps in the explanation that they give for this. It covers all of the expenses that they had to go into to build the infrastructure that your house sits on. So all of the sewer, all of the water, all of the roads, all of the landscaping, all of that had to be installed. So your bond is set at an amount that is based on where your house is and what your share of that cost to develop it was. Then they've got a CDD charge. The CDD charge never goes away. The bond does. At some point, you pay that bond off, but it's done like it's done as a tax, but it's usually for like the first 10 years. The CDD never goes away. The CDD is an ongoing charge that happens similar to annual taxes that is paying for the maintaining of all of that infrastructure. So you're helping pay for the installation of the infrastructure, then you're helping pay for the maintaining of the infrastructure, and then you're paying a monthly fee that never goes away for all of the amenities that you have. The villages, specifically, free golf as a part of that, access to every pool, and I can't even count how many pools there are here.
Which that counteracts the humidity in summer. If it's too hot,
sure does. It
pool.
Sure does, right? Yeah, because you can go and dip it, and the pools are constantly, pretty busy. But you do find some that are tucked away, adult only. It actually works out pretty nicely for you. But that ongoing fee is giving you access to those things and the free golf. There are more holes of golf per square mile here than anywhere else on the planet. So if you're a golfer, this is a place you want to be. If you're into fishing and being on a lake, this is a place to be because it's surrounded by huge lakes. So there's a ton that you get with those fees. And I always want to make sure people understand what a bond is, what a CDD is, how it relates to taxes, because those are things that they're treated like taxes, but they're really not. Your tax rates are pretty reasonable.
Okay. And so if you buy a brand new house, I understand about the bond, but say, because I presume some of the houses in the villages have been there a while. So if you buy a house that someone else has bought and paid the bond for, is that bond paid off? And then you just buy that house if you're the second owner or the third owner?
Yeah. So as long as that first one paid it off, which most people don't, the average number of moves that happen within the villages is 3. So people have a starter villages home and then they move 2 more times. And a lot of times what happens is they'll start with an older home and then graduate their way up to a brand new one in one of the new communities, which is happening every single day. But that bond is something that I believe it usually takes about 10 years to get paid off. So it is something that if you buy a house that's somebody's only been in for 5 years, you're going to have the balance of that bond that's going to be something you have to take care of. It passes to the next person.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, if the house is more than 10 years old, the bond is usually paid for, it's gone. And that is something that we as realtors and the real estate agents that work at the villages really tout, right? If you've got a house that the bond is paid, it's like one of the first lines, you'll see it, bond paid in caps, right? So, because it's a big deal. It can be a decent amount of money. On a lot of the new ones, it's as high as $50,000 to $70,000.
The fact that you've explained all of that up front, people know what they're getting into. And that's whenever I'm helping someone budget for their moves, you've got to account for every single cost, not just the cost of buying a house and renting a moving truck. There are so many other things that you need to take into consideration that are going to happen whether you budget for them or not. And if you don't plan for them, then you get that like, oh my goodness, I didn't know about that. So that is great. And also you've got to remember, you're not paying state income tax.
Right. And the other thing that I want to let people know is that not every builder and not every community charges those things. Not all builders charge bonds. So it's not across the board. You want to work with a realtor who understands that, or at least understands how to ask, because there are new communities popping up here daily. And you may find yourself attracted to one of those because it's got some other conveniences that you want to get into, and they may not charge you a bond. They may not even have a CDD. They'll just have an HOA fee, and that's it. So you want to make sure you dig into that and understand exactly what's happening with the community you're considering and whether or not it's got those things involved. It's a big deal. And the other thing and I'm throwing this in there kind of randomly, it's one of the reasons why I tell people also all the time, when you're considering buying in the villages, you have to have 2 real estate agents. You have to have a realtor and you have to have a villages real estate agent. Villages real estate agents are not realtors. They're not part of the MLS. They have their own MLS. They have their own rules, their own way of doing things. They're not part of NAR, but they are licensed real estate agents in the state of Florida. And because of the relationship that they've decided to have, that the villages has decided to have, they will not allow their real estate agents to sell non-villages real estate company listed homes. So you need a realtor to work with those homes that are not listed by the villages. And there are more of those than there are listed by the villages as far as resale homes are concerned. You also, as a realtor, you cannot sell a villages listed home. There's not even a referral fee. There's nothing. So there's no relationship that exists between the villages and the rest of the real estate community as a whole. And there's a definite wall there. So I always suggest to people, you need both. You want to make sure that you talk to both. Not a lot of agents will tell you that. Because they want to try to let you discover it on your own, right? And hopefully you never do. And then unless it happens by accident and they want to go see a house that's listed by the villages, and then you have to explain it to them. Let people know up front, right? This is when you start looking, you're going to have 2 ways of looking. You're going to want 2 agents. And that's how you want to make sure that you get the best deal for you in this area, or at least inside the villages. And I want to make sure that I clarify something, because I can sell homes in the villages. I can help people buy homes in the villages. I can help people that want to list homes in the villages. In fact, my suggestion would be, if you're going to sell your home in the villages, you absolutely should list with a realtor, because you're going to get onto the websites that you need to. You're going to get marketing that you won't get if you list with the villages. So it's not that I can't get you houses inside the villages. I can't sell you a house that is listed by the villages, which eliminates all new construction from that standpoint that they're doing. And they have a much smaller hold on the resale side of things, because people are understanding better how much marketing plays a role in how much money you get for your house. And when you don't have the capability to get your listings on the big sites, you don't have the capability to market them the right way, it hinders you, and you don't get as much money for it. So, but I just want to make sure that that's perfectly clear, that I can help you find and buy a house in the villages.
Someone just needs to reach out to you and say, I want to buy a house in the villages or maybe in the area around, help me. And then you will explain all of their options to them and anything that maybe seems unclear. So
yeah, and there are certain agents at the villages that I know are going to treat their people better than others. So I will definitely try to get them in touch with the right person on that side of the fence. There's no coordinated effort, I guess, is the way to look at that. There's no like referral network. It just doesn't, none of that exists. Yeah. You just have a couple of friends that take care of clients the right way, and that's what you do, and they reciprocate. See, I've been in real estate marketing for 20 years. I've been an agent for just shy of 10. And one of the things that I've done during that time frame is I've traveled the country coaching agents on how to market homes properly. And nobody else is big enough to have their own MLS, right? And their own real estate company, and basically dictate this is how it's going to happen. So if you really wanted to get an idea of what it was like, it was, they're the Walmart and Disney World of real estate in Florida. They're that big. So they tend to have their own rules, and nobody really messes with them.
Yeah. But within that huge kind of business, you've got individual communities, just like in a regular town. You're not moving somewhere completely impersonal like Disney. You've got you're part of a small community that's part of a bigger community with all the benefits that brings. And now you have a YouTube channel.
Absolutely, it's Your Florida Life. Okay. So what we've done, my wife and I, we go and do things, and we've just gotten this thing started. So I think there's about 10 or 15 videos on there right now. But to the point that you said earlier, there is so much to do here. And I've got a bunch of video I still got to put together and edit and throw up there. We are pass holders at both Disney and Universal. We love going to the beaches. We love St. Augustine. Getting to Cocoa. At some point, I'm going to get down and see a launch, right? You can see it from here. You can actually see, depending on what path they take, you can tell when there's a rocket launch going on. And so it's one of those things that we definitely want to get there. So you're going to see, there'll be videos on there about, going and doing and enjoying those things and what it's like to live that lifestyle here. There's going to be more about the villages and some of the other communities that surround it, because the villages isn't the only option here, even especially for the 55 and over group. There are other places you can get into a little less expensively. It has some great amenities, and then you can just drive into the villages and enjoy all of the stuff that everybody else enjoys. There's a town here called Mount Dora that's 40 minutes south of here. It is, and I had no idea of this, but is the festival capital of the world. They have more festivals and bigger festivals in this lakefront town than anywhere else in the world. And when they have some of these festivals, it completely takes over about a 20 square blocks area. I mean, it's just absolutely astonishing how big this is. And you add to that it's this great historic lakefront town that when it's not having a festival is fun to visit just by itself. And there are hidden gems like that in Winter Garden and Mount Dora and Eustis and Tavares, who's the seaplane capital of the world. I mean, and then you head north into Ocala, and it is the equestrian capital of the world. If you're into horses, there is no other place to be than right here. And we've got the new World Equestrian Center that just went in up there. That is, I've never seen anything like it. It is absolutely astonishing. And my daughter actually had a horse and did dressage and some of that stuff before we moved down here. And we've been to a lot of places. This place just is, I've never seen anything like it. It's just incredible. So there's a ton to do. There's a ton of different places, a ton of options. And that's what that channel is devoted to, is to try to show all of those lifestyle options and then the different places you can live. And it's going to continue to grow to be that.
Perfect. So people must definitely subscribe. So every time you post a new video, they'll get a notification.
Yep. Smash that like. Cling that bell, right? Yeah. I'm getting
wonderful.
Used to that.
So I think we've done an excellent job. I'm ready to start saving so that when I get to 55, which is not as far away as I imagined, it kind of, once you get over 40,
20 years for you?
No. Once you get over 40, 55 comes on very quickly. But it's good for me to know there are amazing places that, to retire.
Yeah.
So if someone wants to, or to live, if you've got kids, obviously with the charter schools and everything.
Oh, yeah.
If someone is interested in your area and they want to work with you, what is the best way for them to get in contact?
There are two different ways that are very good to get in contact with me. Of course, you can get me on social media. That's a given. If you want to connect through the YouTube channel, I also have a Facebook page that has the same name, and an Instagram has the same name. But from a direct connection, you can actually email me at steve@yourflalife.com. Your Florida Life. It's just FLA. And you can also call or text me. Text is probably the easiest and best way to do it to get some sort of a quicker response. But the number to do that would be 352-354-3797. So either one of those ways to reach out and ask questions. If you're interested in taking a look at something, let me know. I have become very good at video walkthroughs. My background has some handyman stuff involved. I've done additions and all of that, so I know some of the things to look for. So people that I have done those for have been have noticed that the videos are very helpful to them without them even being here. Had a number of people buy sight unseen thanks to the way that we do those video walkthroughs. So if you have that desire, you want to see a house, I can get you set up with some great tools to find the right houses. Reach out at one of those two, or hit us up on social media.
And I'll post all of those links below. And the other thing that I always want to point out, when you've moved from another state, like you moved from Ohio, if someone is moving to Florida from a different state, you just understand what they go through.
When I work with people from out of state, I have that experience. You're absolutely right. I hear all those things. I want to make sure you understand about moving here. I want to try to eliminate as many of the surprises as I can. There still may be some things that surprise you, but that's why I'm one of the few realtors that'll tell you up front about CDDs. I'll tell you about how the fees work on your cars, and warn you about these things so that you understand everything that you're getting into, let alone all the details of the transaction and your out-of-pocket costs for that. So we want to make sure that you're fully informed and making a decision that's right for you.
Well, wonderful. Well, thank you so much. And it's been great talking to you.
This has been awesome. And it's an honor to get to talk to you. And I really am looking forward to helping you guys get yourself over here. I know it's a great place to live, and it's that awesome. So looking forward to it.
Thank you.
So long.